What's up, everybody? Trix Ridiculous back with another video, and in this one I've got my really awesome sonic laser Unibeam Valor Ironman build. I know it's kind of a mouthful. This build is really fun to play. It's not as meta as something like just missile spamming and switching back and forth and just spamming missiles as fast as you can click your buttons. I have that build too, but this one, if you're looking to mix things up and play something a little more fun, I think this is the build for you. It's absolutely incredibly powerful. It's almost like a support build because you're going to be spawning so many heroic orbs for yourself and your teammates that you're not going to know what to do with them. You're going to be in overcharge indefinitely if you can kind of keep it going right, and I'll show you why that works. And it's not actually just because of your ability to get your support heroic off of cooldown, but actually you can actually get your support heroic overcharge timer to go up and up and up as you activate your Unibeam. I don't want to say it's a glitch because I'm not going to use that word, but it's something that's in the game. So that you'll see in the background. You might even be able to see it happening right now during the gameplay once in a while. But we're going to go over kind of how this build works, why it's effective, the gear pieces I'm using, and then a little bit of gameplay. But before we do, be sure to like and subscribe. All that stuff really does help the channel, and I really appreciate it. But without further ado, let's jump right in. All right, fellas, so here we are starting with the stats for this Ironman build. Now, it's a heavy Valor build. You really want as much Valor as you possibly can. The reason for that is because we're going to be using our Unibeam a lot. You'll see from the gameplay, you probably already saw a little bit, that we can just activate our Unibeam over and over again, killing everything. And so when we're with high Valor, of course, that's going to scale our Unibeam damage and our crit damage. And we're going to have damage buff up pretty much all the time anyway with this build. So we're going to always be critting. All of our hits are going to be crits. So we want high crit, high Valor for our heroic damage. And our Unibeam is going to be absolutely slaying things. All right. So what gear are we using for this build? Well, the build itself is not 100% perfect. I'm still kind of shuffling around some gear here, but I've got mostly what I want, and obviously still need to get Iron Man to 175. But basically, looking at the stats, of course, as much Valor as you can get, and then precision. A little bit of precision never hurt. Valor is going to be our more important thing here. We are going to be using our laser, the actual range laser attack. We are going to be using that quite a bit, but most of our damage is going to come from the actual Unibeam itself. So your precision itself can be a little lower. It doesn't have to be super high. But I mean, more precision never hurt anybody, right? So really, I mean, the big three: Valor, precision, resolve, little resilience, all of that stuff is very good. Right now, I'm at about 562 Valor and 300 precision. Not the highest, like to be somewhere in the 700 Valor, and then maybe like 500-ish precision. Maybe that might be a little high. Maybe like 400 precision and then like 300 resolve. That would be ideal. But still kind of working out the pieces. And really the perks are more important than the stats, right? So of course, I'll start on the right hand, just the easy stuff, right? Obviously double Valor, triple Valor ISOs. No surprise here. You're going to want the triple Valor stat. All of your stats, this is just a disclaimer for all builds going forward if you didn't already know, always go for the triple stats. It used to not matter when the stats kind of scaled differently. Like if you had 2 stats instead of 3, they would go higher than if you had 3, they would be kind of at a lower level. But now that we're leveling gear up to 165, of course, Crystal Dynamics had not scaled it correctly. So your Valor, your stats on your gear goes way higher if you have 3 of the stats versus just 2. If you have just 2, you're basically missing a full stat roll. So always go with 3, but nothing too fancy here. And then Ring of Nebelung, going to be using that because we are going to be, of course, using our Unibeam, getting that back up very regularly. So, of course, the Ring of Nebelung with the amount restored from orbs, that's going to be our go-to piece. Really what makes this build tick is this piece right here. This is the Centurion's Mark 15 Quantum Reactor. You can get this from Priority Missions for Ironman. And essentially, all we're really using it for is the bottom ability, the overcharge support. So you may have seen other builds. I have other builds using this. Basically, increased heroic charge rate while overcharge. All right. Now, it says only 2.2%, but that's a typo. Basically, it's 2.2 times the charge. All right. So it's 200%. All right. So you're going to get basically every orb you get, everything like standing in a sonic effect. When you stand in a sonic effect, it's, you know, how it kind of gives you back that heroic. Everything is going to give you essentially 3 times. It's going to give you 200% more than what you'd receive. So a total of 3 times as much as you would be receiving. Likewise with heroic orbs. You're basically picking up 1 heroic orb paired with the Ring of Nebulung, of course. Is going to absolutely, you know, 1 and really a half orb, is going to get you back all of your heroics pretty effortlessly. Now, this piece can roll Valor, Precision, Resolve. Like I just mentioned, you want the triple stat rolls. I'm still grinding for one, so I'm going to be trying to, get one out of the priority mission this week. But right now, this is what I've got. Obviously, try to get the Precision, Valor, Resolve. Otherwise, the stats on this are pretty set. The perks are pretty set. We don't care about Buster Breaker. We don't care about the Ultimate Heroic Charge. We only care about the Overcharge support. So, as it sounds, heroic charge rate when overcharged, just so you know, basically make sure that whenever you're picking up an orb, you're in that overcharged state, meaning you've activated your support heroic and then go pick up an orb. You're going to essentially get your support heroic back entirely, so you're not actually wasting it. This perk alone completely carries the build. And this is not a glitch. The devs have come out publicly and said that this is how it is supposed to work. It's just a typo visually, but they are giving the amount that they're supposed to be giving. So don't expect like a nerf or a complete overhaul of this. They may down tune it a little bit, right? It may go from 2 times to 1 times, but even still, if it, they could cut the amount of bonus you get in half and it would still be extremely powerful. So don't worry about nerfs or anything like that. All right, and then I'm just going to jump around a little bit just because this is really the second most important piece of the build. I'm using a targeted buff laser sonic piece here. It's not the most unbelievable piece, but I got it from Wakanda. You can get this from the Here Comes the Pain mission in Wakanda. If you go do my chest farm, that's going to be the best way for you to get this. Just keep grinding chests until you do get something like this. I got lucky and got a really, really good piece. Unfortunately, it's an epic, so the stats can't go super high, but it did still roll with precision. But it's got targeted buff, which we all know. Ranged attacks can grant a damage buff. Of course, that's our moneymaker, right? So we're going to be constantly shooting lasers. We're going to have damage buff up all the time, right? Lasers dealing sonic damage, right? From my other Iron Man build, we know how good that is because when you're actually meleeing with your lasers, it does a hidden plasma effect. So if someone's already affected with sonic from the lasers, you're now doing instant battery effect. So you can do really big single target damage after you sonic someone out and then you start lasering them from the ground, or even from the air as long as you're hitting triangle. And those swipes, those laser samurai swipes, are going to be plasma based. And they do still scale off of your precision, okay? They don't count as melee attacks. They still count as ranged attacks. So having high precision, you're still going to be able to get some really, really good damage, especially with the battery effect and having damage buff up. What I have in the bottom slot there is really where I got pretty lucky as well, is Expert Spark. Chance defeating an enemy with a ranged critical attack grants a heroic charge burst for all heroics. This is phenomenal. Now, you don't have to be using lasers. If you have this same piece but with repulsors or even with missiles, that will work too. I personally like the lasers just because it builds up the status effect a little more. But this Expert Spark piece, will really work with all of them. And it works really great on this build because we're constantly trying to get up our heroics again. And especially with the overcharge support perk, anything that gets our heroics back is going to get 3 times our heroics back. So anytime I do get a heroic charge burst, because the final blow on an enemy is a crit from our laser, which again, most likely will be the case because we have damage buff up all the time, right? When I get that heroic charge burst, it's going to be a triple heroic charge burst, right? So going to get me back all my abilities right there anyway. All right, and then coming over here, this piece is not great. But it's just what I'm using now. The big perk on this is Armory Boon, increased crit hit chance from all weapons. Just makes it so your lasers have a better chance of critting. Not the greatest. It's got precision resolve, which is fine. I would ideally like a really nice raid piece. Unfortunately, I just haven't been able to get a good enough raid piece with Vibranium. I would like something with Valor Precision Resilience if possible, with signature attacks Vibranium. Other than that, nothing else really matters. The one kind of, I'll say, downside of this build, at least how I've currently got it built, is I don't have any Vibranium currently, right? So obviously in the raid, I kind of have to rely on my teammates to, Vibranium up the echoes before I really bring the pain on them with the Sonic. But if I could just do Vibranium with signature attacks, that would be money as well. But I do just want to make sure that, the piece I'm getting has good stats to go with it as well. And then that will really be the piece I want to use. And then the only other piece that you really want to have with this is Unibeam Explosion, right? So you'll see this piece. I got a pretty good roll here with the Discordant Shielding. Basically, the top perk there, you can get this on Elite or regular gear. I don't think it has to be just Elite. But enemies defeated with the Unibeam ability explode. Now you see that in the gameplay. As I'm blowing these guys away with Unibeam, they're exploding, damaging enemies around them. So it's going to help you a lot when enemies are really clustered up. And just be able to spread that damage. And it all scales from your Valor as well. They all count as Unibeam kills, right? So you'll see in a second, obviously, we're spawning a lot of heroic orbs with our Unibeam. You probably already know the skill that you use for that. But when an enemy explodes from another enemy dying from a Unibeam, that also counts as a Unibeam kill. So both enemies will drop a heroic orb. So really, really, really nice there. Obviously, Precision, Resilience, Valor, fantastic rolls there. Scream Immunity, this is actually a really good perk that I recommend trying to get on every character. Basically, chance to completely resist all damage from a sonic attack, and it's a good chance. It's 45%. Basically, the final fight of Claw, everything is a sonic. Literally, even his laser blast, like the big laser that instant kills you, that is a sonic attack. All of his the little blue and red orbs that he spawns in the final fight, all sonic attacks. The rings from the thing, all sonic. Everything that Claw does in the final fight is a sonic attack. So you'll essentially have a 50% chance of just not taking damage from his attacks. Really, really good. And then the bottom perk doesn't matter too much because we're not going to be sending Sonic Conduit buff to other heroes. But if you do have a way to do that, maybe through an artifact or something, you can go with the Sonic and Vibranium damage increase. That's not too bad. All right. Other than that, that's pretty much it for the gear. As far as the skills, it is fairly straightforward. We want to make sure we're using the extra support specialization for Arc Overcharge, right? And then use that with the revived teammates just because the other two don't actually do anything. But this is actually pretty nice. You can almost be a little bit of a Kamala in the raid. Obviously, you're going to be in your overcharge all the time, so much so that you're going to have this. You're going to be in your overcharge, with 20 or 30 seconds even left. And then when and then you'll still have the support ability off cooldown. So you can even fly over to another teammate, use this to revive them, and then still be back in the fight and get it back before it even goes off of cooldown again. So really, really nice there. In regards to the Unibeam, of course, this is our bread and butter. I'm using the Precision Refractor for the extra duration. This is pretty nice for larger targets and just that sustained damage, but also you can just fiddle around with the laser and just be able to kill a bunch of stuff. You can also use the Omega Beam. I know a lot of people like this one because it really just blasts a hole in everything. I find this one a little tough to line up. I would much rather just hold down the laser and then go from enemy to enemy and just kill them as they go versus trying to line up one full shot. But if you find that you like this one better, it's perfectly acceptable. The build will work just fine with this as well. The only other thing I'll say about the top one is this is where the cheese does happen with the overcharge. So when you're in overcharge, if you activate your Unibeam, it actually adds about 7 seconds to the overcharge. I don't know why it does it, but it does. And then, of course, while you're actually shooting it for the whole duration of the shot of the Unibeam, all of your cooldowns pause, right? Your damage buff pauses, right? You still have the damage buff, but the timer doesn't go down. The overcharge doesn't go down, right? So if you can keep getting back your Unibeam and activating it over and over again, you can actually go up on the overcharge. I've gotten my overcharge up to like 1.5 minutes before. So I don't know why it works, but it works. But it only works with the top one here with the precision refractor. It does not work with the Omega Beam. So just something to consider there if you're kind of, flipping back and forth between the two. And then on the right-hand side, this one is, of course, no-brainer. It's the bread and butter of the build. The energy condenser. Enemies defeated by Unibeam will drop a heroic orb. Because we're going to be killing a ton of enemies with Unibeam, we're going to be dropping heroic orbs all the time. Now, just in a general sense of how to play this character, obviously, I recommend, getting your damage buff as quickly as possible, and then just activating Unibeam, and be sure to kind of target the smaller guys, right? In the raid, it'll be like the spiders or the little claw guys or whoever else, just whatever little, patrolmen there are. I would not recommend like completely blowing your whole Unibeam on one large enemy, especially like if they're if they're like a Sonic or like, what are they called? The Echoes, because you'll kind of just waste it, right? The goal is to be able to kill as many people as possible with it, to be able to generate as many heroic orbs as possible. That's really the bread and butter here, okay? Now, you can do this with like I said, the damage buff you get from the lasers. You don't need Tachyon Surge. You'll notice I don't have Tachyon Surge on this build. It's really only necessary to have damage buff because the Unibeam is not actually an elemental attack, so Tachyon Surge does not buff the Unibeam. So really just making sure you have damage buff, and then just trying to kill as many people as possible with your Unibeam every time, and then just go crazy with your laser swipes on any larger targets. And then coming over to the ultimate heroic ability now, our Hulkbuster, most people obviously just use Hulkbuster to get out of sticky situations when their health is low, and this, you can do that with this build too if you want. But you can actually do some pretty decent damage with Hulkbuster, obviously, because we are stacking as much Valor as we are. Now, even with that said, I'm still using Disruption Pulse. You can switch back and forth. I'll be honest, I'm just a little too lazy to, but anything that's not the raid, go with the Magno Missile Barrage to be able to hit all those enemies with those missiles. You'll do a ton of damage. You'll be able to spam this. I think it's like 3 times now, maybe even 4. But with High Valor, this will do a really good amount of damage to a lot of enemies. This is, anyone who's done the Claw raid knows that this is really the piece you use for the final Claw fight. So super, super powerful there. And, with this build, with Sonic and being able to get our support heroics back and all that jazz, this is extremely useful for the raid as well, because we'll pretty much have this up and back every stun phase for Claw. So we'll be definitely stunning him like a lunatic. And that's pretty much it. And then I just use this one over here. Other than that, I mean, the mastery, no real mystery here. Everything's pretty standard. Obviously, just switch this over to whatever you like. And like I said, if you get a targeted buff, Sonic Repulsor or Sonic Missiles, you can absolutely use those pieces too. I personally like the lasers, but I wouldn't actually be surprised to see the Repulsors work pretty well in this build also. They do build status pretty quickly if you're just hip firing them. And if you can get damage buff, from them, they can definitely do some serious damage. And then again, you're going to be using your Unibeam primarily as well. And then that's it. Coming over to the champion points, I mean, I'm a little bit of a high champion level, but if you're not, definitely just focus on crit damage boost, crit chance, and then heroic charge rate, perk chance, and then lastly over here, the fortification boost. Those are the only 5 that actually do a damn. Everything else here is pretty much useless. So don't even bother putting stuff into the other ones until you're like, a much higher champion level. But that is pretty much it for this Iron Man build. As far as upgrades, from what I have here, the only things I would recommend are, like I said, just a better one slot piece that just has better stats and possibly vibranium on the signature attack, so I can at least you can pair that with your Sonic here and at least be able to just spam a few, slam down signatures on the echoes to vibranium them up and then finish them off with the Sonic here. The only other thing, is on the artifacts. Another thing you could do is try to get a piece from the raid that has the pinpoint vibranium payload. I'll show you. I have one actually on my Kamala Khan. They're very rare. I only have one on I think just Kamala is who I have it on, which is not a great character to have it. But essentially a piece like this, right? I got lucky. This one has Valor Resilience. If I could get this exact piece on Iron Man, I'd be pretty okay with it. It would be a hit to my Valor for sure. But the chance that a ranged crit will activate a vibranium payload on the target, that's absolutely huge for your minor artifact, right? So we'll take a little bit of a hit, but basically pretty much any of our laser hits have a chance of just hitting that vibranium over, right? And then giving us that automatic battery effect because we're using Sonic. And remember, of course, we're already have targeted buff up all the time. So we're going to be critting. We're going to have battery effect, damage buff all the time, Sonic and Vibranium. It's going to be great for the raid. This is a nice, so definitely just be looking out for a piece like this. It's up to you if you feel like it's necessary in place of triple Valor. Obviously, triple Valor is nice as well. But if you can get this piece, try it out. It'll definitely be really good, specifically for the raid. Maybe for all other content, you can use just the triple Valor pieces. But anyway, that's pretty much it, guys. Give this build a try. I promise you, it's really fun. It's what I've been using in the raid and everywhere else. It's so chill to just be able to blow up everyone with the Unibeam and then just go crazy with Sonic lasers, fly around. I mean, you guys know how to play lasers. But yeah, that's it for me. Like I said, I mean, this isn't the missile spammy, max DPS Melt Claw, instantly type of build. Like I get that it's not, I have that build as well. But I switch back and forth. I've been using this one. So, give them both a try. But anyway, that's it. Definitely, if you did learn something or you like the build, be sure to like and subscribe. That really helps the channel. Let me know down in the comments if you're already playing an Iron Man kind of similar to this or how you're playing your Iron Man. I'd love to hear it. Be sure to join the Discord if you're, looking for just Avengers updates and news and LFG as well. And consider becoming a channel member. That link is in the description as well. Otherwise, that's it for me, guys. I'll leave you with a little bit of gameplay, and I'll see you in the next one.